All right, this is 4-3, congruent triangles. So, as you may guess, in order to be congruent triangles, you're going to need congruent parts, because congruent parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Profound, I know. Okay, so looking at the first part of the notes, first I need to name these triangles, or else it's going to be hard to refer to them. So if this is A, B, C, that's triangle ABC. And then I can call the other one J, P, H. So now I have them named so I can refer to their parts. If I'm going to list the corresponding angles, you can't go just by what the triangles look like. You have to, none of these drawings are ever to scale, meaning like it's not measured out with a protractor. So you need congruency statements that tell you which parts are the same. So here if we have angle A marked with one line, and if I had angle H marked with one line, then angle A would be congruent to angle H. That's how you know they're the same. And if I have angle B is marked with two lines, and angle J is marked with two lines, then angle B is congruent to angle J. Now that does not mean that angle J is larger than angle H. The number of lines doesn't say anything about the size. It's just saying that they are congruent if they're marked the same. So then I'm going to say angle C has 3 lines and angle P has 3 lines. So angle C is congruent to angle P. Alright, so now I have angle A, B, A has 1, H has 1, B has 2, J has 2, C has 3, P has 3. Again, that does not mean anything about which one's larger. Alright, so corresponding sides, we have to match up the letters again. So if I have from A to B, if I mark that with 1, and I know angle A is the same as angle H, then from H to J I would mark with 1, because B has 2 and J has 2. So I could say segment AB is congruent to segment HJ. And the way I listed the letters is important. The next I could say, it doesn't really matter, I'm going to put 2 lines over there with A and C. So I could say segment AC is congruent, and I have to find the one that is congruent to AC. A has 1 marking, H has 1, C has 3, P has 3, so it has to be HP. So segment AC is congruent to segment HP. And the last side, I'm going to mark it with 3 lines and call it segment CB. CB is going to be congruent. I started with the one with 3 lines, so 3 lines is P, so PJ. So you want to match them up in a very particular order. They have to match. And then from that I can write a congruency statement, which is a very useful statement. So triangle, if I say the order ABC, then that's going to be congruent. I have to write it in the matching order. Okay, so I said started with A, so H, B and J, P. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle HJP. And you have to have the orders in the correct, you have to have the letters in the correct order. So the congruency statement works like a map to the triangles. It tells you what parts go with which parts. What just happened? OneNote just shut down. Okay. So two polygons are congruent if and only if their corresponding parts are congruent. When you write two polygons congruent, you must list the corresponding parts in the same order. It doesn't matter which order you write the first part of your statement in, where I did triangle ABC. I could have done triangle CAB. And triangle CAB would be congruent. Ooh, I have to rewrite that. Shut down, it lost my statement. HJP. So CAB would be congruent to PHJ. It just depends on how you write the first half to the order of the second half. All right, so here we have an example. Given the triangles below, list the corresponding angles, corresponding sides, and write a valid congruency statement. So the corresponding angles, and it doesn't matter where you start. I'll start with the one line. Angle M has one line, so that's going to be congruent. So there's angle M with angle T, because angle T has one line. Angle N has two lines. So angle R and angle R has two lines. So angle N is congruent to angle R. And then last, angle L has three lines, so it is congruent to angle S because it also has three lines. And then next up we're looking at sides. See if which parts are congruent on the sides. From L to M there is a single line, and there's a single line from S to T. So segment LM is congruent to segment ST. And you have to have the letters in the correct order. So the next one with two lines, if I say M to N, I started with the angle with one line, M, so segment MN. That will be congruent to TR. I would write TR, not RT, because the one that matches it needs to match the order. And then last I have three lines. So NL matches RS. So side NL is congruent to side RS. Okay. And now that I have corresponding angles and corresponding sides or segments, I can write a congruency statement that triangle, and it doesn't matter what order I do this in, so NLM is congruent to triangle, and I just have to match it. I said N, so R. Then I said L, so that goes with S. And then I said M, and M goes with T. It doesn't matter the order you list the first triangle, but the second triangle has to match it. Okay, so up next, this is no picture, it's just given triangle PQR is congruent to triangle STW, complete the following. And you can sketch a picture as always if you like, but one of the good things about the statements is it shows you. So if I have triangle PQR, and the first one says angle Q, so angle Q is the middle letter of the first triangle. So the middle letter of the second triangle is going to be its match. So angle Q is congruent to angle T. And then angle W is the third letter of the second triangle. It matches the third letter of the first triangle. So angle R. And I like to do all the angles and then move on to the sides, so I'm going to go ahead and go to angle S. Angle S is the first letter of the second triangle, so it matches the first letter of the first triangle, angle P. And then do the same thing with the sides. Pay attention to the order of the letters. If I start with WS, W is the third letter, S is the first letter. So R is the third letter and P is the first letter. So side RP. And then the next one is QR, segment QR. QR, that's the second and the third letters of the first triangle. So the second and the third letters of the second triangle, TW. And then a statement. Triangle TSW is congruent. Can I just write triangle PQR? Because it already says PQR is congruent to STW at the top. We're still talking about the same triangle. No, I can't. I have to match the order of the letters, even though I'm talking about the exact same triangle. So triangle TSW is congruent to triangle, which part matches T. T is the middle letter. Q is the middle letter. So Q, S goes with P, and W goes with R. So QPR. Alright, so looking at the order of the letters for a congruency statement. So then, can you conclude that triangle JKL is congruent to triangle MNL? Justify your answer. Okay, so let's see. Do we have angles matching? Angle J, does it match angle M? Well, J has one line, and M has one line. Okay, sure. Looks like they match. Angle K and N. K has two lines. N has two lines. It looks like they match. Alright, so what about L? Does angle L, is it congruent to angle L? Even without looking at the picture, you should be able to say, yeah, that makes sense. And here in the picture, they're vertical angles. That's why it's congruent to itself, because it's vertical. Alright, so the angles all match, but we can't just say it's a congruent triangle because the angles match. We have to check the side lengths as well. Alright, what about segment KL? If we go with the second two letters, the last two letters, and then that should match NL. So let's find those. So here's KL and NL. Well, KL is marked with one line, and NL is marked with two lines. So are they congruent? No. So if one set of sides is not congruent, that's enough to say that the triangles are not congruent, because all parts have to be congruent in order for the triangles to be congruent. So the answer is no, because it's asking, can you conclude they are congruent? No, you cannot. Why? Because segment KL is not congruent to segment NL. And it doesn't matter if there's more ways to prove it false. Once you prove it false once, that's all you have to do. Okay, so next is some solving. We're given a congruency statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DBC, and we need to determine the values. Okay. First says find X. Right there's find X. So first thing you do is you literally find X. There it is, right there. It's an angle D. So at least that's a starting point, right? So we know where we're starting, because we want to know about angle D, because that's where X is. Is there anything we can do to solve for that? Well, let's see. D is the first letter of the second part of the statement. So then the first letter of the first part of the statement matches it. That's angle A. Here's angle A. And look, we do have information there, 42 degrees. So that tells me that 2x minus 16 equals 42 degrees. And then I can do a little bit of algebra to solve it. I want to get rid of that negative 16, so I'm going to add 16 to it. If I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side. So 2x equals 58. And then I divide by 2. So x equals 29. All right, so we did the first part, find x. B says the measure of angle DBC. Okay, so DBC, there's 3 letters there, so we have to map it out because B is in the middle. DBC. So when one angle is split into 2 pieces, we can't just say angle B because we don't know which one it would be talking about, the top angle B or the bottom angle B. So that's why there's 3 letters saying DBC. So now we're talking, we know that we're being asked for this side. That's what we're looking for, angle DBC. And that says B, so here's B. We know that B is congruent to B. So we know the other side is the same, but there's not any information there. So neither one of them have any value written there. So this is where you have to remember other things that we learned in the unit, such as the triangle angle sum theorem. You have to figure out another way to solve for it if there's not something obvious. If you know that all triangles add up to 180 degrees, and you look at this top triangle, you have 42 degrees, and you have the little box in the corner, and I know that you know that means 90 degrees. And so then we're only missing one of the angles. So if we use subtraction in the triangle angle sum theorem, because we know this is going to be a total of 180, 180 minus 90 gives you 90. And then subtract the 42, and that's 48. So that means that 48 degrees right here. Angle ABC is 48 degrees. And angle DBC is also 48 degrees. Okay. And then last it says, what is BCD? Here's B, here's C, here's D. So we're talking about this part over here. It's asking about that angle. That's BCD. Well, if C is congruent to C, that means this pink dot is congruent to this little box, and we know that little box means 90 degrees. Alright, so that's the first one. And now we have another solving example. Given the triangle FGH is congruent to triangle JKL, find the following values. First of all, I'm going to put a little line on top of KL because that should be a segment KL. And then I'm going to find it. Where is it? Here it is. There's K to L. KL in the statement is the last 2 letters. So the last 2 letters of the other triangle will match up. Because remember, you can't just go by what the picture looks like, because sometimes the pictures are misleading. But side GH. Okay, here's side GH. I see the 4x minus 20 degrees, but 1, it has the degree symbol, so I know it's not talking about a side. And 2, it has an arrow that's pointing to the inside, so that's the angle on the inside. That has nothing to do with side GH. So there is nothing here on GH, and KL, all it has is a Y. Well, I don't know what that is. So that means I need to get creative in how I think about solving this. How else might I be able to solve for Y? Now, if you look around, then you'll see that there is another y right here on side KJ or JK. Side JK has a y. Let's look at the statement, see what matches that. JK is the first two letters. FG is the first two letters. So here's FG, and what do you know? That's 12. So I can write an equation given that those two pieces are congruent. So I could say that 3y minus 15 equals 12. And now I can solve for y, which is what I was looking for. So 3y equals 27. And then you divide by 3 to get y by itself. So y equals 9. And if I write that over here, y equals 9. Now I know the length of KL. KL has a length of 9. I don't know what the unit is. It could be 9 miles or 9 centimeters. It doesn't say. Just 9. Okay, and then the second part B, says x. I'm looking for the value of x. I already found x. I was talking about earlier, 4x minus 20. And I know that has to do with angle G, because that has to do with G. So if I look here for G, G is the middle letter. K is the middle letter. Here's K. K is 108 degrees. So I know that that equals 4x minus 20. 4x minus 20 equals 108 degrees. So then I add 20. It makes the negative 20 go away. 4x equals 128. And then I can divide by 4. So x equals 32. All right, we good there? Okay, example 6. Given triangle ABC is congruent to triangle FED. Determine the following values. I want to find x. Here's x. It's on the outside, so it's a side length, BC. So if I want side length BC, and you see, what does that correspond to? BC corresponds with ED. And I can see that ED is 6. So 2x minus 2 equals 6. Let me solve that one. So I add 2 to both sides to cancel out the negative 2. 2x equals 8. And then divide it by 2 to get x by itself. So x equals 4. Okay, so next, looking for the measure of angle F. All right, so first I'm going to look at the statement. F is the first letter of the second triangle, so it should match the first letter of the first triangle, A. So F and A go together. But neither F or A have a value given to them. We just know that they are the same. So that means I, again, have to get creative in how I solve for this. I want F. There's, in this triangle, all I have is the 90 and then another missing angle. So So if I look at A, I have 90, but now I know the other angle is 53 degrees. And I know the triangle angle sum theorem tells me that all triangles add up to 180 degrees. So I could solve for A by saying 180 minus 90 gives me 90, minus 53 gives me 37. So A has to be 37 degrees. And if A and F are the same, then that means F is also 37 degrees. And then lastly, E. E is the middle letter. B is the middle letter. B is 53 degrees, so E must also be 53 degrees. All right, so then the last one, we're given triangle FGH is congruent to triangle NQP. We're also given that the measure of angle G is 27 degrees and the measure of angle F is 43 degrees, and asked what are the measures of N, Q, and P. Okay, so we have a statement, so we could just do this by matching up the letters, but it is a good practice in geometry to sketch a triangle. I don't even have a clue what these triangles look like, except for they're going to have 3 sides. And that they're congruent too. That's terrible. That's better. Okay, so FGH. FGH. I just assigned 3 letters to the first triangle. And then NQP. I'm going to assign them to the other one. A. NQP. All right. And then it tells me, so I just drew 2 triangles and I labeled their parts. The measure of G is 27 degrees, so I can add that to my picture. Here's G. I'm going to make it 27 degrees. The measure of angle F is 43 degrees. Here's F, and that's 43. What are the measures of NQP? Well, before I even do that, I could figure out H, right? Because I know all triangles add up to 180. I know one of the angles is 27 degrees. And the other one is 43. So if I start with 180, I subtract what's given. 180 minus 27. Minus 43 is 110. So if this one, it doesn't look like 110 because remember I didn't know what my triangle looked like when I started. I just drew some triangles. It doesn't matter that that's clearly a tiny little acute angle and I just put it in there at 110. I didn't know I needed to draw an obtuse triangle. I just drew a triangle. But it didn't ask me for H, so it seems like I did that for nothing. But I bet it'll come in handy later. Alright, so it asked me, what is the measure of angle N? Well, N is the first letter of the second piece of the statement, and the first letter of the first piece is F. So N goes with F. So if F is 43, then N is 43. And then Q. Q is the second letter of the statement. And that goes with G, which is also the second letter of the statement. G is 27, so Q is 27. And then last, what is P? Well, I know P is the same as H. H is 110, so P is 110.